Scott, welcome to the stage.
Thank you, everyone.
We're talking about AI and the new economics of space data, but I think people always want to know, especially when you're in space country as you are here, what's the space side of the space data? What's up there with BlackSky's name stenciled on the side?
Well, we several things we're in pursuit of, and one of the reasons I went to work for BlackSky out of the government is because their vision included not just the build out of satellites, but also included the build out of a very capable platform that you could run AI against in anticipation of that data coming into that platform. So when we looked initially at when I was in the government, we looked at who was building that, who's got the vision that would be a data aggregator in a brokerage service, so to speak, of all the commercial constellations out there. And at that time, BlackSky was far and away the most advanced thinking in that case. So eventually, that AI needs to be fed an enormous amount of data to mature the output of those algorithms. So as of right now, BlackSky operates 12 satellites in mid-inclined orbit from our Gen 2 constellation, which is 1 meter accuracy of data. We're at about 5 to 6 meters geolocation accuracy off those satellites. And then we have launched over at the end of I guess about 4 months ago, we launched our second Gen 3 satellite. We just shipped our third Gen 3 satellite to New Zealand to be launched on a Rocket Lab Electron launch vehicle here, hopefully by the end of this month. So that satellite constellation is far advanced from what we did in Gen 2. This one has 35 centimeter capability electro-optical, also has a SWIR band on it that we're still working with the U.S. government regulatory NOAA part of regulatory environment to make sure that we can release that data to some of our international customers as well. But we're running AI on all of that. So we have various contracts with both international and domestic defense departments and intelligence communities to run up to 35 different object AI to detect and characterize 30 plus different objects across the globe and deliver them in very low latency ways. So,
how low are we talking when we say low?
So right now we revisit areas of the world between about 60 north and 60 south every 60 minutes. The contracts over the next 3 years, we expect to improve that to something close to 30 minutes on the revisit rate, right, in different areas of the world. And then the data delivery is driving down to something in the single-digit minutes to respond to tactical situations around the globe for various militaries and Defense Department requirements. So it's all about speed right now. You look at where the customer is trying to go. It's getting the data to the person that needs it to make a decision as rapidly as possible, because the future of everything is moving so fast. I think speed is one of the big drivers. Speed and quality of our data, one of the big drivers of the future at BlackSky.
Speed and quality don't necessarily go together. So we will be hearing from Dan Golden tomorrow morning, so maybe they do. But speed and quality don't necessarily go together. How much is the AI part of your portfolio? How much time does that take up, working the AI, making sure that things happen promptly? Claude was telling me for about a minute this morning that it was working on something which really wasn't very complicated.
No, that's actually a pretty good timeline. I think by the time we process the data once to format it into a raw image and then run the algorithms against it, some of which you have to run multiple algorithms through that same processor and deliver it within that same timeline. So a minute is about as good a guess as you can make, right?
Right.
That's what it's taking.
So that's not at the level where you'd like to bring it down, but it's small compared to your revisit rate, and presumably
correct.
That will remain the case.
Yeah, I mean, we have customers that quite honestly are more interested in the output of the analytics than looking at the image itself. They realize that they would be overwhelmed to try and manually exploit with humans all the imagery that's coming down in their area of interest. So they have already told us eventually we do not want to consume the image. We only want to consume the output of the analytics. And so that's got to require a lot of effort on building trust with those analytics. He's got to feed it all. Our constellation basically covers, for the electro-optical part, an hour before sunrise to an hour after. So those analytics have to run in different variations of daylight, in different variations of weather, right? Snow on the ground, snow not on the ground, leaves on the trees, not on the trees, daylight, low light, shadows, all those kind of things. So it has to really, it consumes a lot of imagery to be able to kind of deliver a high quality and high reliability analytic output.
But does that capability of providing the knowledge without the image, does that mean that you can open up potential markets where there aren't any sort of like traditional imagery interpretation skills?
Yeah, I think that's the intent, right? I think what we're in right now is a kind of a phase of transition where people don't trust it yet, so they want to actually have access to the image. So we actually do that. When the output goes out, it has a data tag on there that you can click on and actually examine the image itself to make sure that the output is what you thought it was, right? Is accurate. And that's not always going to be the case. Some cases, people are more willing to accept false positives in some areas than they are in other areas. So, but they don't want to miss anything. So I think that's part of it. So building trust in that and having people like in the U.S. government who have been trained over their career to be very accurate in their manual exploitation of data are somewhat reluctant to accept a machine doing that on their behalf. So, but the realization is if there's that much imagery coming down, you are not humanly able to look at it anyway. Wouldn't you rather have a machine do something with it, even if it's only at 80 or 90% reliability? At least something's looking at it that can give you a cue, tell you what you told me to look for, and tell you is happening here as far as the machine's concerned, make you more efficient in doing the rest of your job.
But you wouldn't necessarily want to use it for targeting or something like that.
For what?
Targeting.
No, you would not. No, you would not. No, that's a whole different animal you need for targeting. So, I mean, it will get there over time, but for targeting somebody to make a decision, they're going to want their lawyer next to them and everything else to make sure that this data is not the only data source you're using. Perhaps
And the lawyer will have the lawyer's AI.
Yes, exactly.
And someone asking quickly on Slido, could you restate the resolution of the satellites?
Gen 2 is 1 meter GSD, and our Gen 3 satellite is 35 centimeters GSD.
And how can you bring together the data from your satellites and the data from other people doing things like, well, we talked before about SAR capabilities, but I guess also, as someone's pointed out on the very helpful board, RF monitoring?
Yeah, we've done a number of, we call it tri-collects, where you'll bring in...
Call it
tri-collects, where you've got an RF hit telling you something's out there that you're interested in, and if it's daylight, we can image it as quickly as possible. If it's nighttime, then you've got to have a SAR image do that, right, to try and locate.
So this is try as in three, not try as in attempt.
Three, yes, tri-collect. Well, it's actually both, so not too far from the truth. Sometimes it's a little clunky. I think it's all about how you build your scheduler for your constellation. So a SAR provider may be a little bit different than the way we do it. Some are first in, first out. Others are more advanced. We built a very advanced scheduler, and we can introduce a new collection requirement very quickly, have it scheduled within 5 minutes, and then collect it as soon as physics allows. So I think the challenge with RF is that the ellipse that it provides you typically, whether it's something there, a radar there, or a communication device there that you care about, is fairly large. They're working to bring that down to a smaller ellipse so that we can then image inside that ellipse with confidence and determine what that object is that's emitting that signal.
Thinking back to your days when you were in government agencies involved with this, would you rather then have had one organization that did the RF and the electro-optical and the SAR, or would you have thought, oh yeah, it's fine that these three guys should sort it out among themselves?
Well, sorting it out amongst themselves, amongst the commercial providers, is creates some, it's really not a technical challenge, it's more of a business relationship challenge. How do you share whatever contract value that might be? How do I make sure that I get is there a series of guaranteed minimums that each company has to agree to, all that? That's what I've witnessed is the harder part about this. The technology can be dealt with enough development dollars and other kinds of things. But I think that's what the U.S. government does well. That's what the Five Eyes partners in Australia and Britain and others do very well. They bring all that together in a way in which it can be managed efficiently amongst all the collectors. That's not really the case yet on the commercial side.
And we were hearing on the previous panel about the importance always of keeping in mind your total addressable market. How's the shape of the total addressable market changing for BlackSky?
I think the market right now seems to be expanding heavily on the international front, right? Many countries now are very interested in developing and having a sovereign capability that they can control and have access to when needed. And that can come about through a multitude of ways, right? They can buy satellites off a production line, off ours or anyone else. They could buy a couple of satellites and then contract for a service level agreement with the remainder of our constellation. They could just buy the output of the analytics and consume it that way. And the advantage that I think a lot of these international partners have is they are not dragging 40 years of baggage with them like the U.S. government is, that has had a very structured acquisition process that is difficult to kind of pivot from. So the commercial company or the other countries can say, look, I want this capability. I want to control it when I need it. I only want it in this area. I don't need it for the rest of the world like the U.S. government does. So that kind of creates an opportunity for a company like BlackSky to say, okay, if you only want it there in the Far East, we've got another customer in the Middle East that wants that same capability there. We got another one in Europe that wants it here. How do you work all those relationships together to drive the price down to a point that makes sense and is attractive to everyone?
One last question, because we're pretty much out of time, but because it just fascinates me. The AI part we normally think of as being the Earth-based part and the data acquisitions being the space-based part. How long in the future do you think we have to look before the AI is in space as well?
Yeah, not long. So we tend to buy our satellites in increments of 8 for supply chain reasons, et cetera, keep those costs down. So we're already investigating the next 8 satellites on our Gen 3 constellation. And so the intent is to put onboard processing on those satellites. The challenge we're having is we're monitoring all the other investments going on in space that are likely bringing data centers to space in the next 5 or so years. So the question is, how much processing do you want to do on that satellite versus how much do you want to push through a mesh system like Starlink or Starshield or Amazon Kuiper and allow that to be processed through a data center in space and then immediately sent sometimes to the satellite that follows behind the one that you just detected something on. So all those things are being, that whole ecosystem of space activity is influencing what the decisions we make on how much AI to put on the next generation of our satellites. But it's going to be there. There's no doubt about that. That's where it's going.
Okay. Scott, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.